Hey everyone, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Dr. Matt Buch, a doctor of physical therapy, board-certified orthopedic specialist, and the owner of Total Pursuit Physical Therapy and Performance based out of De Pere, Wisconsin. Dr. Matt works with active people of all kinds, from athletes who love to train hard to parents who simply want to run around with their kids without dealing with constant aches and pains. But what really sets him apart is his belief that pain isn't something you just live with. So if you've ever been told to rest more, stretch more, or chalk it up to getting older, he is really passionate about challenging that mindset. His approach focuses on uncovering the root cause so that you can move better and feel stronger for the long haul. Dr. Matt creates customized treatment plans that often combine hands-on techniques like dry needling, cupping, and joint manipulation with strength training, movement coaching, and realistic habit shifts that actually fit your life. It's not just about getting you out of pain, it's about keeping you active long term. And outside the clinic, he's an avid bow hunter, climber, outdoor enthusiast, husband, and dad to 2 young boys, so he truly understands the value of being able to move well and keep up with the life that you love. We can't wait for you guys to get to know him, and here he is. Welcome, Dr. Matt.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are really excited to learn about your expertise and learn so much from you in 4 different episodes. But for any of our listeners who have been following us for any period of time, you guys know that we like to start out with learning a little bit about our guests, including a fun fact. And you had shared that you and your wife spent your first 2 anniversaries backpacking. So tell us about those experiences. Where did you go, and how much did you love it, and have you been back?
No, it was awesome. So it's funny, like most of our friends are people that we know, when you think of doing an anniversary trip or something like that, you think of, going to a sandals resort or a beach or something like that, which we totally did for our honeymoon. But our idea of a fun vacation is just doing something super active, which is probably why I'm in the field that I'm in. Yeah. So for our first anniversary, we did a 50-mile backpacking trip through Yosemite National Park. It was kind of like our highlight trip where we planned our route out, got to go up on top of Half Dome, came back down, and then just kind of continued through like a lot of the different highlights through the park, carried everything on our back, and slept out in the wilderness for 5 nights. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you were backpack like camping then, right? So you carried all your food. Did you have to? Can you hunt there? Were you able to get food?
No, definitely not. So we carried all of our food. We lived off of, Cliff Bars and dehydrated meals.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So we definitely weren't eating in luxury, but the first meal we had when we came back was probably like the best meal I've ever had, just because we were, out in the wilderness for 5 days. But no, it was great. Yeah, you carry everything on your back. As the trip goes on, the pack gets a little bit lighter because you start eating your food, which is kind of nice. And we flew out there. We rented a car, parked our rental car where we were going to come out, and then hitchhiked all the way back to where we were going to start. So that was new. We've never done that before. Right. And then our second trip, for our second anniversary, we went out to Banff National Park in British Columbia, Canada. My wife, Kate, was actually about 6 months pregnant at that time. So we took it a little bit easier on the hiking and backpacking side of things. We did a night or 2 out, but then really just camped and did a lot of day hikes and saw all the views, and that was awesome too. Most beautiful places I've ever been.
How old are your kids now?
They are 3. So Titus is our oldest boy, he's 3, and Ira, our youngest boy, he just turned 1 about 3 weeks ago.
Do you have aspirations to take them on their first backpacking trip when they're a certain age? Are you counting down the days?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. They need to be able to carry their own packs though. So right. It'll probably be a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So to answer your other question, no, we haven't been back because then we started having kids and those types of things change a little bit. But once they're older, we're definitely going to get them out there and we're going to hit it again.
Yeah. Cool. My husband and I did a trip down to New Mexico area. His brother lives down there. So we dropped our kids off with them. And then the 2 of us went and we did dispersed camping. So we actually slept in the back of our truck. So we had our truck the whole time, but it was where we went to Colorado and then Utah and then the Grand Canyon, North and South Rims. And it was the best vacation ever because you kind of had that luxury stuff, but also we had nothing planned. And I loved that because I hate planning things, but it was great. It was great.
That's the best, when you can just kind of wake up and be like, oh, what are we going to do today?
Yeah.
Let's kind of make it up as we go.
And we had a downpour, but you're in the back of a truck with a cap on it. So it was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear a little bit about your journey becoming a PT. What got you interested in the first place? Tell us about what you've done for staying active in the past. Just tell us all about you.
Yeah. So I don't really have a crazy like injury story. A lot of PTs, they tore their ACL playing soccer, and their PT, really helped, get them back into the game, and that's what inspired them to become a PT. I was pretty lucky. I kind of avoided the injury bug growing up, aside from a couple bumps and bruises. But really what got me interested was I knew I wanted to do something healthcare related because I loved, just learning about how the body worked and, what really makes us tick. And so I actually just kind of figured I would do a lot of shadowing and just explore different options that were out there. So my uncle's a dentist, so I shadowed him. Decided I really didn't like teeth that much, so that was out. Looked into like optometry, some different fields of medicine, and then finally stumbled upon this thing called physical therapy. And just growing up, running track, playing baseball, snowboarding, just really being an active person who would rather be outside than inside any day of the week in any weather. Movement is super important to me. And I kind of just began to realize, like, if that was taken away from me, that would be like the worst thing imaginable for me if I couldn't physically function to do the things that I love to do. So naturally, that just kind of really inspired me to kind of go down that path. And that's essentially what led me here, is just being able to help people stay active, stay moving, do the things that actually help them enjoy their life to the fullest.
For sure. And I love the topics that you've picked because I feel like they're so relatable to so many people. In this episode, we're going to be talking about like why rest and stretching may not be fixing your pain, or like why things may not be coming and stemming directly from where the pain source is. Because I feel like there's so many people who have an injury, or they have, they'd say it's chronic lower back pain, but it kind of comes and goes, or chronic knee pain that comes and goes, and they rest it and they ice it and they stretch it and they take ibuprofen, but like nothing's changing. So what are they doing wrong in these like everyday instances?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing that's really important to remember is that pain is always just a symptom, not necessarily a cause, which sounds super obvious, but I think a lot of times what people end up defaulting to, and even what our modern medical system tends to move toward, is just pain management. So taking a medication, using heat and ice, resting until the pain goes away, and then just going right back to what you were doing. The problem with that is that pain is always the last thing to show up and then the first thing to go away when there is an underlying problem. So what we really try to do as a practice here is we want to figure out, why are you actually getting into pain in the first place? So all of those other things, the rest, the pain medication, ice, heat, there's absolutely a place for those, especially like during an acute injury when you just need to get things to calm down. But once things are calmed down, then what we want to do is figure out, how did you get to this point in the first place, and address that so that this isn't going to be a recurring injury like what unfortunately happens to so many people.
What are some of the common injuries that you're seeing in your practice where a lot of people have them?
Yeah. So we see a ton of shoulders. I think just naturally with the clientele we see a lot of busy, active adults who, are maybe trying to, keep up with stuff around the house. Maybe they work a manual labor job. Maybe they're just trying to continue to play sports with their kids. I've seen a number of people who want to throw a ball with their kids, whether it's a football, a softball, whatever, and it's just not happening. And what I see more often is that pain isn't necessarily what brings people in. It's when the pain gets bad enough to prevent people from doing those things that give their life meaning, from participating in those activities that really fulfill their life. So that's a big one. The other thing is knee pain and even low back pain. We see a lot of runners, a lot of, for this audience, we see a lot of moms who, have maybe put their athletic desires kind of on the shelf for a little bit while they're raising young kids and they have young families. But, as their kids get a little bit older, they start getting into sports. They're like, all right, perfect. Now I can get back into, running, for example, which is something that I've always loved to do. I know we're going to do an episode on this later, but they go out for their first run and all of a sudden they come home and their knee is swollen or their back really starts to hurt as they begin to get back into this. And unfortunately, a lot of people are just like, well, I guess that's just not for me anymore. My body can't handle it. I'm getting older.
Too old.
Yeah, exactly. I'm too old. They might go to their primary care and their primary care is like, well, have you thought about just biking? Things like that. And then I think, unfortunately, a lot of times people are like, well, I guess I'm not doing that anymore, without really giving it a second thought as to, is this something that I can do with a proper approach?
And another one that comes to mind too is all the desk jobs out there. I mean, my husband feels this for sure. He's a financial advisor, and so he does sit a lot, and when he's meeting with people or on his computer, and he has a ton of like upper shoulder and neck tension. So that's a great example, as well as the ones that you were just talking about. For somebody who has a job, or the things that they do every day are kind of causing some of this discomfort, maybe it's from a postural issue or something like that, should you be stretching? Should you be strengthening? Should you be resting? Like, how do you approach this when it's something you do have to do every day?
Yeah. So the answer to that question is yes to all of those. I think where people kind of get hung up is a lot of times these symptoms that they get, like let's take the desk job, for example. The common American posture is kind of that like rounded shoulders, like chin forward. You're sitting at a computer all day long, even looking down at a cell phone all day long. Like that's pretty typical now. So what you're going to feel is a lot of tightness. You're going to feel a lot of tightness through the front of your shoulders, through your chest because of that rounded position. You're going to feel a lot of tightness in the back of your neck because of that chin forward position. And so naturally what people tend to do is just stretch, which is fine for symptom management. It'll help loosen things up and you'll feel better immediately after stretching. But then you go back to work the next day, sit like that for 8 hours again, and you're back in the same position again. So what we want to figure out is, how do we use, stretching, rest, whatever it is, to just get those symptoms down. And then from there, how do we build up your body's tolerance so that you are sitting in a more appropriate posture, or you are sitting in a more supported position to where you're not constantly getting that, desk posture. And so we do a lot of strengthening through the back to allow those muscles to, pull your shoulders back. We do a lot of strengthening through some of the deep neck muscles to really give you some proper neck support, head support, and then really start to train, okay, how do we do our bodies to utilize these muscles so that we're not even getting into the position where we feel like we have to stretch all the time in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, what are some good stretches that you might recommend to somebody? Because like you said, a lot of people are doing this slouchy thing. And honestly, I don't know a lot of people who have perfect posture. There's plenty of people who have awareness, but even I sometimes slouch a lot too. And I know I need to stretch that chest out and things like that. So what are some examples of some stretching you have for people?
Yeah, to just real quick, I want to touch on the perfect posture thing. Like, I'm definitely not saying that everybody has to have perfect posture. That's not super realistic. But the body does crave movement. It doesn't like to sit in the same position all day long. So finding ways to, cue yourself every 30 minutes to, sit up, do some, what I would call like shoulder blade squeezes. I almost like to think of taking your shoulder blades and pulling them down toward your back pockets. That's going to really open your chest up nicely. It's going to engage those muscles between your shoulder blades. And it's also going to prevent you from just shrugging your shoulders up as you're trying to squeeze those shoulder blades, which can lead to some other issues with neck tension, headaches, things like that. So the other one would just be, this one's a little bit less flattering, but taking your chin and just kind of tucking it into your neck, making like a double chin type position. That really stretches out the back of the neck nice, and it engages those deep muscles. So that would be another one that if you are working a desk job, every half hour, just kind of tuck your chin, hold for a second or two, relax, do 10 reps of that or so, and then go right back to your normal work. Even just simple little things like that, where you're adjusting your body's movement and not just sitting in that slouched over position for hours on end can make a huge difference.
This makes me also think about, for people who feel like they're not naturally flexible, but they want to work on it, do you have any tips for, somebody who feels like they're stretching and stretching and stretching, and they're not really making progress in their flexibility or their mobility, really, if that's more of their goal? Is there something that they're missing in that instance, or why isn't stretching always the answer?
I would say more often than not, if you are somebody who is doing a lot of stretching and just not really feeling like you're getting anywhere, there's probably a weakness component to it as well. So let's use the hamstrings, for example. A lot of people really try to stretch their hamstrings. They do their toe touches. Yeah, right. But then they're like, I just have tight hamstrings. Like, I'm never going to touch my toes, or this isn't getting any better. What usually is happening is, especially if they're, a runner or someone who is doing a little bit more of an active lifestyle, maybe they're working out on a regular basis, their hamstrings are probably weak. And what's going on is you're overloading that muscle. So you're running, that hamstring starts to fatigue out. And then as a protective mechanism, it tightens up to protect the muscle from being overstretched because it can't tolerate the load that you're putting on it. So what I tell people is if you have been stretching and it just doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere, we probably need to test out your strength. We got to see, how strong are these muscles? And there's a good chance that we're going to find some weakness. And once we really build up the strength and load tolerance of those muscles, you're going to start to notice that you don't feel like you have to stretch all the time anymore because those muscles aren't feeling that tight, kind of tensed up sensation that they get when they are overworked.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And then I also think about how you're talking about tenseness like in your hamstrings, but then also the whole body is connected. Like, we are one big kinetic chain. We have fascia all over. And so how often is it that you're seeing that somebody's tightness or pain point is actually not like the actual issue, and it's actually stemming from somewhere else, but it's like ricocheting through the body to create pain in a different area? Is that something you see a lot?
It is. I would say it's not always stemming from somewhere else, or that's not always the cause. Sometimes it certainly is. But more often than not, there's going to be a lot of contributing factors. So let's say we're dealing with somebody with knee pain, for example. Very, very seldomly is it just going to be one issue that we're looking at. So for example, a weak thigh muscle or your quad muscle, for example. There's probably some stuff going on at the ankle. There's probably some stuff going on up at the hip that's impacting the way that your knee is moving. It might not be the direct reason that the knee is having an issue, but it's probably compounding the effect of it, if that makes sense. So anytime that we get a client into the office, if their knee hurts, we are not just looking at their knee. We're looking at how their entire body is moving from their neck all the way down to their toes, because we want to figure out, okay, if one area of the body is not moving correct, if one side of your body is weaker than the other, how is that causing you to compensate when you're doing, let's say you're doing a boot camp workout, you're doing, 100 squats in a workout. As you fatigue, how is your body starting to compensate? And then how is that leading itself to causing your knee pain? So really, it is a bit of a puzzle when we bring somebody in. I almost like to describe it as we're just peeling back layers. So we're going to start at the area of interest, hit the low-hanging fruit there, and then we just kind of work our way out and figure out what other parts of the body are contributing to this movement pattern, this way that you're compensating, whatever it is that is impacting this particular spot that you're having pain in.
If somebody is currently struggling with a nagging issue, whether it's tightness or pain, what do you feel like should be kind of their steps to try and overcome that? Should they be icing and ibuprofen? And I know every situation is going to be different, but in general, like tightness or pain, kind of walk us through what people should try and then when they should really come and see a PT.
Totally. For the icing and ibuprofen, if this is an injury that has just happened, let's say you're, playing soccer with your kids in the backyard, you step in a hole and twist your knee, sure. Like, that's totally appropriate, especially if you have a lot of swelling. You really don't want to use those modalities long term, because what it's going to do is it's going to start to mask your symptoms more than it is going to help anything. So the step-by-step process that most people take is they'll use the ice, the pain medication, whatever. And then what I would say is once that swelling, or, you're kind of through that initial 48 to 72 hours from that initial injury, then you want to start just kind of doing what we would call a little bit of, graded exposure. Just kind of do what you can that's going to be relatively pain-free. And by that, I mean, a 3 to 4 out of 10 or less. A little bit of discomfort, totally normal. If it's distracting you or preventing you from doing something, you're probably doing a little bit too much. If you can start to work through that a little bit, do some gentle, like if we're using the knee example, just kind of start moving your knee through its full range of motion, and then slowly grade yourself back into your activity, you're probably going to be just fine. Where I would recommend people come and see somebody like myself is if this has been something that's been going on for more than 2 weeks and you're just not getting back to where you want to be, there's probably some stuff underneath the surface that needs to get addressed. There's probably some weakness or some tissue intolerance that we need to figure out how to build up your body's ability to go through these movements and these activities again without going through a lot of compensation. Because unfortunately, what we see a lot of is people will put off taking care of something like this until it really starts to affect their ability to enjoy their life. And then a lot of times people come in here and they're like, well, I've been dealing with this for, a year and a half or 2 years, something like that. And by that point, they've started to really develop all sorts of other issues through their body compensating. Because your body is always going to find the most efficient way to perform a movement. So you're going to start to develop all of these little cheats and shortcuts. And then that's when we get into the weeds of really having to, dissect all of these different parts of your body that have slowly started to adapt in a negative way because of this original injury. Yeah. So I always tell people the best way to avoid an injury is to not get injured in the first place. Second best way is to take care of it before it really becomes a nagging issue.
I love that you said 2 weeks. Yep, 2 weeks, people.
So I know that you offer a free consult. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is listening to this and they're like, yeah, that's me. I've had this nagging thing forever or for a few weeks. How would they get in contact with you, and then tell us about your free consult?
Totally. So they can go to our website, and if they just go to the Contact Us section in the upper right corner, there will be an opportunity for them to put in their contact information. We can contact them. Otherwise, we have a scheduling link right on the website as well. Our consultation is a free 30-minute phone call. The reason I do that is I really just don't want to waste people's time. I want to make sure that we can absolutely help them. And I want to make sure that the way that we do things is what they're looking for. So what we do is we go through a phone call where we'll ask you, all about your symptoms, your history, kind of what got you to this point in the first place. We're going to ask you about your goals, what you're really looking to get back into doing. And then we're going to walk you through exactly what our process looks like. If everything makes sense, then we'll schedule the initial evaluation from there. If it doesn't make sense, then we will help you find somebody that might be a better fit. But we just really want to make sure that this is going to be a good option for somebody before they commit to actually coming in and even seeing us for that initial evaluation.
I love that, because I feel like if you're going to like a bigger place that has multiple locations and 25 PTs, like you don't necessarily get that. You kind of pick one based off their bio on the website, and you're just hoping and assuming that they're going to be a good fit for you, right? And I love that you said that you don't want to waste somebody's time, because when somebody's finally willing to admit that they need PT and they're going to take the time and the money to go do it, like they don't want to have to start over with someone else. So I think that's amazing that you do that.
Absolutely.
What is your website?
It is totalpursuitpt.com.
So this was a great first episode. I feel like this is going to be so relatable to so many people, because who doesn't have periodic aches and pains? And it's just kind of like great to kind of know where to start and when you actually need to seek help. But we're going to be getting into a little bit deeper topics in our next couple episodes. Next one, we're going to be diving more into that knee and back pain, specifically also getting into like CrossFit and HIIT workouts and why those things tend to show up a little bit more in those types of workouts and what you can do to actually kind of bulletproof those areas a little bit. We're also going to be talking about running, having a whole episode about running. So whether you are currently a runner or you were a runner in the past and you're entertaining jumping back into it and you want to just make sure that you're not getting injured in the process because nobody has time for that, that's going to be a great episode for you. And then finally, in our 4th episode with Dr. Matt, we're going to be talking about dry needling, which I'm pretty sure most people have heard about now, but it sounds really scary. And so you're going to help us understand what's actually happening in that episode. So we're excited for 3 more.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.